Hi, today we're doing EMS Term 1 revision for grade 9. So we're starting with the economic problem. The economic problem is that people's needs are unlimited. There will always be people and they will always need stuff and want stuff. But the resources are limited. So that's the problem with the economy is scarcity. So the reason why we have an economy in the first place, why things cost money, why does the cost of things change? Why does the exchange rate change? Why do we import and export? Everything that's got to do with the economy is about scarcity. Because we don't have enough resources and enough resources in one place, we need to trade with each other. And that's what fuels the entire economic system. If you can picture this, imagine everybody had everything they need, like right there available. We've got a community, we've got everything we need right there. There's no need for us to get more things than we've got because we're completely self-sustainable. And no matter how big our population gets, we don't need anything externally. That would mean our resources is not scarce, which means there wouldn't be much of an economy. Everyone would eat and drink and sleep and play and whatever whenever they like, because we don't have to work, we don't have to trade, we don't have to earn money, because everybody's got what they need. But that does not happen because there are always a scarcity of resources. All right, let's look at the economic cycle. So the economic cycle is a two-way stream. So there's a two-way flow of money that goes from, let's say we've got a household and we've got a business. Let's say Spar. Your family and Spar. So your family needs food. So you go to Spar, that arrow, you go to Spar, you give them money, they give you food. But there are also people working at Spar. And there are people, they need to pay people for the goods that they are selling. So that money goes back into the household. So you can think about somebody who works at Spar, gets money for the household, that household buys bread and it goes back to the shop. So it's always a two-way stream. And that's the economic cycle. Now, in this economy, we need to get money. So how do we get money? And those are called the factors of production. So there are 4 of them. So labor, that's something that you have. You have skills, you have muscles and a body, you can work. And for your work, you get wages or a salary. So you get paid for working. That's the first way you can get money. Labor, you can get paid for working. Then you can have resources or land. So if you have something, you can rent it out and get money that way. Think about it. I have a house, I have land, I rent it out and I get money from it. Okay, how else can we get money? Capital. So let's say we already have money. So we can invest that money and earn interest, making more money. Then we can also start our own business. So we can start a business and make profit. So let's have a look at an example. Let's take Microsoft, for example. So Bill Gates is an entrepreneur. He created a company in his parents' garage. He built it up and it became huge. And he is making a profit. He's an entrepreneur. He has people working for him. That's labor. People work for him. He pays them a salary. For his property, he needs his building somewhere. He rents a building and pays the landlord rent. And that landlord gets money from it. Eventually, he might own his own property, which is capital. So capital, say he owns his own land. And capital is also the money that he's already got. So that is an investment that he's earning interest on to make more money. So that is the factors of production. How do people get money? Now let's have a look at the market. What is the market? Market is basically buying and selling things. So we get two main types of markets. We get let's start with a product market first. The product market is households, like the example that I gave of Spar. Households buy things and businesses sell things. So, let's say businesses sell things. But a factor economy is the opposite. So in a factor economy, businesses buy from the households. So the household provides resources that the business needs. So this is households sell. Okay, so it's completely the opposite. Then we get a currency market. So we're buying and selling things. That's the point about a market. Let's add that here. Buying and selling. So a currency market is where you buy and sell money. So it's foreign exchange. You're exchanging foreign currency. All right, let's talk about the global economy. So what is the global economy? The global economy is all the economies in the world. So every single country's economy. All the factors of production. So in every country there are factors of production. So it includes all of the economies and all of the factors of production. We're looking at how they interact and trade on a global level. Okay, so it's all of the countries in the world, all of the factors of production, and how they interact and trade on a global level. Right. Who participates in this economy? So we've got households. So households, you go to the shop and you buy bread. Household, that's your family, the people who live in your house, and they participate in the economy by buying and selling things. Then we've got the private sector. So that is privately owned businesses. So let's say that's like Spar. Okay, this is like your family. Okay, the public sector is things that's controlled by the government. There we go. What? My typing skills has gone down. There we go. The public sector is the government, like for example, buses. Like, like the Ria Vaya. because the government subsidizes the Rea Vaya. So that is the public sector. Hospitals, government hospitals would be public sector. So let's say your family, your dad goes to the shop, he goes to Spar or Pick n Pay or Woolworths or whatever. How does he get there? With the Rea Vaya. Or he goes to the shop, he buys some chicken and he gets food poisoning and he ends up in Helen Joseph. So that would be household, private and public. The foreign sector is everything that is outside of the country itself. So that would be imports and exports. So that would link more to the global economy. So how is a country's economy measured? Measuring economy. So we measure economies by GDP and GDP per capita and GNP and GNP per capita. But let's focus on GDP for now. GDP is gross domestic product. Okay, gross is total. Domestic is in a country. Okay, and the product is basically adding it all together. Okay, so we say it's the total what? Total goods and services in a country. What do these goods and services do? They provide money. So it's all the money in the country that's being exchanged by people. So it's all the money that comes in from trading goods and services inside a country. Okay, if we add a per capita for that, per capita means per person. So then you basically just take the whole thing and divide it by how many people there are. Which gives you a better idea of the economy. Because if you've got a huge GDP, which means the country makes a lot of money, but you've got a massive country, or you make an average amount of money, but you're a tiny country, then it's very difficult to compare these two, which is why we usually work it out to per person. Then we're looking at international trade. All right, so that's part of the global economy, is international trade. So what is international trade? International trade is countries buying and selling things, goods and services being bought and sold across borders. And why do we have international trade? So the reason why we've got international trade is because some countries have things that other countries don't. So that's uneven distribution of resources. So some countries have resources that other countries need. So think about coal. Some countries don't have a lot of coal, but they need it for their power plants. So then they buy coal from a different country. They might not have a lot of fruit in their country. Like let's say you're a desert country and you don't have a lot of fruit. Then you import fruit. So because it's uneven, some countries need to buy the things they don't have from other countries. Then we also get climate differences. I just used the example of a desert. So because of the climate of the country, we can't grow what we need. So the climate can limit what the country can produce. If you think about the northernmost town in the whole world is on an island called Svalbard, and it's a Norwegian island. Like, imagine that's like above the tree line. There are no trees. There's no plants growing there. You cannot create your own food. You must buy it from an external source. It must come from Norway. So it's trading from a different place to get what you need. So another reason for international trade is labor specialization. That means over time, some countries become known for a certain thing. For example, Japan is great with electronics. So a lot of the major electronic companies started in Japan, and a lot of electronics come from Japan. So because they specialized in electronics, that's where people buy electronics from. Or you can have a look at Germany. Germany are known for engineering. So countries like MAN and car manufacturers, VW, all of those places come from Germany. So that's what they are known for. So labor specialization is basically over time, countries become known for and specialize in specific goods. Okay. Or services, not necessarily just goods. Then we also get preferences. What do people want and what do people need? That's all got to do with, it's also, I want something that isn't in my country, so I buy it somewhere else. Think about things that you import, you order from online. You order something from America online because we don't have it in South Africa. So that's why we need international trade. So you can order or buy things you don't have in your country. So for example, we've got fancy Swiss chocolate. We also want that. So we import it. Things like I just said, the Germans specialize in cars, VW. I also want a VW, so I buy one from Germany, which is international trade. So let's quickly just have a look at what does South Africa import and export. So we export a lot of diamonds, platinum and gold, and also fruit, sugar and wool, and coal as well. Amongst others, there's a whole bunch of other things, but that's our main exports. So what do we import? We import, a lot of the things we import is secondary products like machines and cars and chemicals, things that we don't necessarily manufacture ourselves. Then we also import petrol and crude oil, and some of the minerals we don't have. So we've got gold and platinum, but other minerals we don't, so then we import it. Then further looking at international trade and the global economy is exchange rate. So exchange rate is how the ratios between different currencies change. So it's basically, if you want to buy dollars, how much is it going to cost you? So it's the change in price of currency. All right. Now we get two types. We've got a fixed exchange rate, which means it always stays the same. It doesn't matter what, your exchange rate is always the same. That usually goes with planned economies, and an example of that is China. A floating exchange rate is more got to do with supply and demand, and because of that, it's more of a market economy, because as the supply gets more, the price gets less. As the demands gets more, the price gets more. So that is a floating exchange rate because it changes. So speaking of market economy, let's have a look at the economic systems. So there are two major economic systems that you need to know about. The first is a market economy, and the other one is a planned economy. So a market economy is based on supply and demand. So as people need stuff, they buy stuff. Let's have a look at some of the advantages. Okay, examples, we've got America, UK, Canada, South Africa, most of Europe. Then we've got advantages. So we have freedom of choice. So a market economy, anybody can make whatever they want to make profit, and the government doesn't interfere in that. So it's based on supply and demand. People need things, so you provide things. So the advantages of that is freedom of choice. You can choose what you want to buy, and if a lot of people want to buy something, then there's a market for it. There's no limit to how much money you're allowed to earn. Some people have loads of money, other people don't, but there's no limit. And then there's very little interference from the government. So the government doesn't interfere with the system. It's not, they don't, in that kind of country, it's not the government's job to look after the economy. It does what it does, and the government doesn't interfere. And the main motivation is profit. People make a profit, and that's why things happen. Then the disadvantages of that is there's a big gap between rich and poor people. The reason why there's a big gap is the people who has resources makes a big profit, and the people who don't can't make a big profit. Then you very often get poor working conditions, because the main reason why people do things is for a profit. So they don't necessarily make sure that their workers are happy. So the working condition can be poor because the main goal is to make profit. And for that same reason, we get environmental issues. The government doesn't interfere and say, hey, you, go clean up after yourself. We are making profit. And if we put in measures to prevent environmental degradation, it's going to cost us money, and we don't want to do that. It's too expensive. We want to make a profit. Then we can also get poor quality of goods because we're out to make a profit. So if our quality is very good, we're going to make less profit. Let's have a look at a planned economy then. So a planned economy is the whole economy is planned by the government. So a couple of examples there. We've got Cuba, China, North Korea, Zimbabwe. Those are examples of planned economies. So in a planned economy, advantages of that is there is no gap or a very small gap between rich and poor people. So because we've got an equal distribution of wealth, So people don't necessarily get money for what they are doing. We distribute the wealth equally. So it's not driven by profit. Everybody gets something. So there's no or a very small gap between rich and poor people. Because of that, we also have low unemployment, because the government plans so that people have jobs. Then disadvantages, we can have great inefficiency. So we produce things, but because profit is not a motivating factor, we go, ugh, why do I have to do this? It's not like I'm going to get more money. And then I don't do it properly because I'm not going to get loads of money for it. Think about lots of jobs. If people are not going to get paid a lot of money, then they don't necessarily do their job properly. So that is inefficiency. Then we also get no or little freedom of choice. So because the government plans what is produced and how much of it is produced, we don't necessarily have the choice of whatever goods we want. Then because it's planned by the government, there could be political pressures. So if the government doesn't like what I'm doing, they can tell me to stop it because they're in charge and they are in charge of the economy. So there can be political pressure of what to do and what not to do. Right, so that is the economy, economic problem, markets. We looked at the global economy, what it is, international trade, who participates, exchange rates, and we had a look at the market economy and the planned economy. So that is the revision for EMS for term 1.